Cheers, everybody. It is Monday, November 4th, 2019. This is Your Cup of Jones. Hi, everybody. Everybody's talking about candy in chat right now, and it's driving me crazy, man. Talking about 100 grand. I'm familiar with 100 grand. I can see the 100 grand like logo, but I don't know. I don't remember what 100 grand tastes like. I honestly committed mostly to Mellow Cream Pumpkins in the month of October. It's kind of like only the candy that I ate. You saw me down a lot of candy during the group stream that we had. Some Skittles and some Snickers and M&Ms and stuff. And we got mostly the chocolate variety here at the Jones Troop household. And a couple of that, you know, I don't usually do Twix, but hey, if there's a Twix right there, let's do it. It's November now. October's over. It's fine. We'll get through it. Chat, if you're unaware, Mellow Cream Pumpkins are like 5 candy corns each. They're like 3 candy corns each. But that's the thing. I'm all about high performance with my sugar consumption. It's November. It's time to transition from the spookiness from the candy into the wholesome foods, into the mashed potatoes and various meat products. And of course, the holidays are coming up. Everybody's scheduling their time off. We only have I actually was going to mention this in the post today, and I forgot. But we're getting close to bets. We've never been this close at the end of the year since the inception of Easy Allies with our show bets. And I don't recall how we added up back in the GT Live days, but we are close. And we lost last year, and so I really I feel bad because I went on paternity leave and was out for like 3 or 4 episodes, and so like I think that's why we're so close. I think I would have at least had one bet in there, and this last bet, God, came so close. So I'm nervous, but we got to talk about schedules. We got to talk about shows. Hey, I don't have I didn't get the schedule this week from Blood, the little pretty schedule image that he creates. That might be going up today, but was not created in advance. Maybe he just messaged me that, but it's the first time. He came pretty close a week ago or 2 weeks ago. I think I got it like that morning before Cup started, but I don't have it. But so I got the site schedule. It's up. Let me send it to you. There we go. Okay, nice. It's on Twitter. Well, I'm supposed to get it off Twitter. Am I really supposed to follow Easy Allies? Is that what's going? That we've come to? I gotta see what's going on at Easy Allies. Here, I can just download it from Twitter, Blood. Let me type it in. Easy Allies into Twitter. There it is. Get on the desktop view. Isn't this the way every Cup of Jones episode should start? Well, we're not doing schedule for a little bit, but thank you, Blood. Specifically, schedule stuff that I want to talk about. Occasional Board Show's back. We actually have a bunch of fun episodes coming up. Several episodes. I think there are 3 in the can right now. So there will be occasional board game shows episodes coming to you maybe a little bit faster than we originally promised. Which, thank goodness, at least some of that happened in Phase 4. Community Showcase is on a weird day. It's on Wednesday this week. That worked out the best for Michael Damiani and his schedule. So Wednesday at noon, I will be sitting down with Michael Damiani. We'll be going through all of the showcase stuff. And the latest episode of Don's Design Lab, which I know we talked about last week in terms of the schedule, but I'm in it, and it's really good. It's fascinating to be a part of one of those episodes. I'd watched them previously, but it was really interesting, you know, coming into an episode of Don's Design Lab in the role that I did, and then stepping back and seeing the big picture was very enjoyable. New reviews, of course. Death Stranding, the embargo went up on the 1st, and Blood right on time. 150K on our Death Stranding review. Thanks to everybody for checking that out and sharing it. But kudos to Ian Hink for doing a lovely edit, and especially Ben Moore, who had a long time to ruminate over that game. And I think I look back on my Spider-Man and Red Dead Redemption 2 reviews, and I think one of my flaws as a review writer is I tend to get like right to the point, and I don't really. I spend a lot of time when I write the intro, and then I kind of get into a flow in writing a review script, and that just carries me all the way to the end. And they can kind of feel cold and clinical a little bit, just kind of like this happens, then this happens, and there's your score. And Ben just does such an amazing job of really like incorporating like, how are you feeling while you're playing this game, and then how does that apply to the game? How does the game want you to feel? How do you feel about it? And then what? At the end of the day. And I just think there's been few greater examples of specifically Ben Moore's style, and how that can really like clarify and be a really fun commentary. Sometimes I'm just happy when I finish a review that I work on, and it's like, yay, we have that review. I'm glad that we've made that statement about Death Stranding. Having played as much as I've played of that game, I definitely see where Ben is coming from, and it's a great review. Check it out. Outer Worlds also. Kudos to Bloodworth. I got to cut that one, and that was a fun, obviously a game full of a lot of really great sound bites. So that was fun putting together. And heads up. Ben is going to move on potentially to Pokemon Sword and Shield. I'm also going to be playing that, of course. Bossman's going to be playing that. We're probably not going to get that until Pokemon Sword and Shield comes out. So there have been some reviews. Poor Bloodworth has been working on a lot of stuff, Borderlands and then Outer Worlds, that were very big games that we did not get, until launch, or, didn't have nearly enough time to finish before embargo. So Pokemon will be one of those games. But it's nice. It offsets. You got the Death Stranding on one end. You got Pokemon on the other end. Some games we are given, a great amount of time beforehand. Other games we are not. And also kudos to Bloodworth for joining me on the latest episode of Trailer Jones. If you haven't checked it out, put up a second episode, which is nice. I'm hoping to get at least one more done in the month of November. Just kind of waiting for the right moment. I got to be honest, the scheduling Trailer Jones has been tricky, of course, with Milo, but also just kind of with everybody's. Some people are media blackout on things, which I hadn't really anticipated, and it's tricky to catch people in that moment and get something. This episode was tricky because it actually went up 2 days after the review was posted because I didn't want to, jump that morning right on top of the Death Stranding review. I really wanted that to be the focus. I think that was on a Friday, and then the video went up the day after. So, that episode, unlike the first episode of Trailer Jones, had 2 people in it. And so this mic was doing weird things, which is interesting because it doesn't do it on the stream. But when I record in Audacity, I think there's some setting where whenever I peak on this mic, it like corrects it, makes everything really quiet for a second. So I did that a couple times in the video. But Bloodworth is working on Luigi's Mansion currently. So yeah, another classic Bloodworth. Blood is playing all of his review games this season with you at the same time. We got Outer Worlds and plenty of time. FYI, I'm just a slowpoke. Oh, okay. Well, there you go. Really being honest, throwing himself out there. Speaking of throwing yourself out there and being honest, I'm going to talk the editorial today. It's going to be about love. 12 years have Amanda Troop and I been married. 17 years we've been together. And let's talk a little bit about how we did that. Let's look at, we got the schedule now. Okay, wait, hold on a second. I'm going to do this quick and dirty. Oh, there's nothing there. Oh, there it is. Okay. So yeah, Don's Design Lab today, along with Frame Trap and Achieve It Yourself, new episode on Wednesday. I think we're getting into my episodes now and Achieve It Yourself, so definitely don't miss that. Oh wait, no, this is last. What? No, this is one before. No, there's no Don Design Lab this week. That's the wrong one. Blood said he sent it to me, so hold on a second. Let me open up Slack. No, there it is. No, there we go. Blood's just shaking his head. Blood's like, occasional board game show, of course, as we discussed. Luigi's Mansion 3, which will be great. I'm super glad we're streaming that this week. Regardless, will be our stream team game this week. And then tomorrow night, Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games, Tokyo 2020 for our group stream. Should really be great. Community Showcase, like I said, is on Wednesday. Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. Everything else is continues. Grand Stream Saga, Majora's Mask, Trials of Mana, Weekly Hunts, Pokemon Silver. All our full playthroughs, if not ongoing streams. And then, of course, our podcast this weekend, Reaction Shots, Easy Update. And for the public, the Easy Allies podcast on Sunday. Cool. Business questions. Let's do it. Brandon K. Gann, starting out almost every single episode of Cup of Jones, if not number 2. I sometimes wonder if Brandon Gann's number 2. He's like, damn it. Will Easy A producer do anything to commemorate 1 year since the move into the studio once everyone is back from winter break and goatees are over? Sure, I put it on takeaways. Yeah, we should definitely do some kind of commemorative stream. It would be the end of January, so we would have some time in January past the goatees to plan that. Maybe that could be the week after goatees, yeah. But again, just like everything else, if I throw that at the Allies and they're like, well, it's been a year, but there's nothing really could think of specifically to commemorate it. I have thought about this, though, because I can promise, the old classic Cup of Jones promise, I definitely do want to do an episode of Cup of Jones in the month of January where we look back at 1 year in the studio and what we've been able to produce in the studio. There are a lot of times when we finally get something set up or get some equipment working the way it should, or, premiere a new show or something where I think, man, I wish we were able to do that a week earlier or a month earlier. But when you look back at a full year in the studio, it's like we've done a lot. I mean, and maybe some of that hasn't necessarily been either communicated, or you missed that episode of Cup of Jones, or we didn't necessarily go into detail on how that, so I think, like, obviously taking a camera, going through the studio, pointing stuff out, showing where we're at. Hopefully by the end of January 2020, we'll have put up those pictures in our office, make the office look a little bit better. Maybe get a new desk in there, new chair. We'll see. What Christmas presents do we want to buy for the studio? Rob Bob Will, I was wondering if you had received any feedback from either the allies or the community regarding the grinding charity stream idea. So context, I believe this was during Pokemon Silver. I told Kyle that I had an idea for a charity stream where we just play games where we grind. So we mostly RPGs probably, but literally like an extremely repetitive action, so that it seems like we're doing work for whatever charity that is. It's not just that we're playing a game that we enjoy. Again, this is not something that, it's just like a silly idea that I had on the side. And it's always dangerous to bring up ideas because people then are like, well, you said that out loud. That's not a thing that you're doing now. And I totally hid chat. Come back, chat. There you are. There's still some things we need to get, like beefing up the office with desks and workstations, as well as those pictures. Yay. I said the same thing Blood said. So at least we're it's not often Bloodworth and I are on the same page. Specifically during an episode of Cup of Jones. I can get Jones tunnel vision. And so, yeah, that was basically the idea. It's like your normal charity, but we're only playing games where we're grinding. Of course, I love the idea because I love to grind. I personally think it's a great idea, and was imagining either a system similar to charity runs where we could pledge a certain amount per level up some max, or have donations be in real time, but with an additional field for how much would be doled out per level. Just something so that each level you grind, there's a known quantity being quote-unquote earned. I think this would lead to some really fun moments where the levels might earn you $5 at one point when all the donations line up just right. A level might earn you $500, for instance. Anyways, just curious about your thoughts on this. Sure, I'll throw it out to the team. You have to understand, this will be on a long list of charity, stream ideas that we've had. I know that our, specifically in the latter half of 2019, our charity efforts have been definitely wanting. And it's something that I always want to try to do in December. It's just like, I know Kind of Funny is doing a lot of Extra Life stuff right now. And the issue is, once we hit September, it's really something we need to do, before the transition, moving out of events over the summer. Obviously, all the conventions that happen over the summer, and then moving into review season, like September is kind of that perfect time. So when that comes and goes, we really just run out of hours, to be able to produce something like that. But we have a lot of ideas. Something like Magic the Gathering would work well for a charity stream, because that would be super long and involved. And we've done stuff in the past. It's interesting to think of possibly like one game that would carry you through that whole thing, or if you were to break up and have multiple games, multiple allies coming in and playing different things, what would be the theme going through all of it? Not to mention, finding the right company to do a charity for. One idea I had was that, like, what if all 9 allies brought a charity, and whatever money we received was split 9 equal ways, and then each ally, when they came in for their said I'm going to be playing for this specific charity, so if you want to donate now, that's where that money will be going, or whatever. So again, these are just like ruminations that I've had, nothing that we've officially said, because it would have to take all 9 allies to not only sign off on whatever charity stream we're going to do, but admit that, yes, during review season, during event season, during whatever season we're doing, especially now post Phase 4, I think that was another thing that put the kibosh on any charity work that we would do, because we're working on Together We RPG, we're working on Occasional Board Game Show, we're working to, finishing up Trailer Jones, getting Prison of Love, which I think is almost like 3 or 4 episodes in right now. They're just basically like, finalizing the format. Getting all that stuff out to you was really the priority. Hopefully next year, when we're still in Phase 4, we can have more time for charities next year. And maybe it'll be a grind charity. We'll see. I have a feeling some allies are not going to be super stoked on that idea. Ibrahim Sozer, Brad's like, no, Jones. Out of all the EZA Kickstarter reviews, Shenmue is the only one funded by a member who's reviewing a game he backed. So we talked about this last week for the editorial, that Michael Huber is an avid supporter, obviously, of Shenmue 3, and that, brings into questions, is he the right person to review the game? And so we are going to just be sure that we're 100%, clear with transparency on people knowing who Huber is, what his involvement is with Shenmue, and where his opinion comes. We might not review Shenmue. That's something that we talked about, potentially, like, we'll just see when Huber gets a game what he feels like doing. He might just make a video where he talks about it. But I can't say I'm not running receipts on all of the allies. I know I've never reviewed a game that I've kickstarted. I think when Kickstarter began, I dropped $1 on like a couple of like zombie games that I don't think ever like happened. But anything that's any zombie game that I thought was fascinating, I was like, oh yeah, what's more console zombie games? Let's do it. Just that had interesting ideas, stuff like iZombie, whatever was out for iZombie's the show. Whatever the Wii U, or is it Zombie U? There it is. Just weird stuff like that. But if we did, I think it's less that like that's the qualification for us, really, putting safety gloves on when we deal with the review, but just specifically Huber's involvement. I mean, a lot of people found out about Game Trailers and Easy Allies because of that Shenmue 3 reaction video, because of, Huber and Bossman and Elise and Brad flipping out about Final Fantasy VII Remake. And so that narrative could potentially end with this review. It could kind of be like the last thing you hear from, certainly won't be the last thing you hear from Huber about Shenmue, but just in terms of, what that game is like, what it would be like to get a third Shenmue game. So I think that's the main thing, just like the level of his involvement, the level of his enthusiasm. On top of all that enthusiasm, if people found out that, he had also financially backed it. Raises into questions, raises questions that we would like to answer before we even do that video. Kevin Frey, how is it decided how much time will be spent on a game before writing and publishing the review? In your Outer Worlds review, Blood mentioned that his playtime was around 60 hours, while the vast majority of other reviews I watched mentioned playtimes of around 25 to 30 hours. I found this info incredibly useful and distinct from other reviews out there. Do you think that seeing all or the vast majority of optional content in a game leads to better or more valuable review? I personally think so, and feel your Outer Worlds review is one of the better and more comprehensive ones available. Nice, Kevin. I don't think it necessarily does, because I think a lot of people, like you were saying, I think it's one of the better, more comprehensive ones available, means you watched multiple reviews. And so if someone, let's take Days Gone, for example, just to speak from something that I experienced. I didn't do everything in Days Gone. There were definitely a lot of hidden collectibles I didn't pick up, so I don't know what they unlocked. I don't know if I've ever reviewed an Assassin's Creed game for Game Trailers or Easy Allies, but I've certainly played like almost all of them. And I'm not doing all that stuff. Actually, it's worth talking about this week. Huber and I are potentially going to settle down and talk about Ghost Recon Breakpoint in lieu of doing a review, because, Huber's at that point where he's just like, how valuable is my, throwing my hat into the ring if Yves Guillemot came out and specifically said, yeah, Breakpoint sucks. It's like, well, then why am I going to drop a score on it if the head of Ubisoft is like, this game's a big disappointment. Apologies, everybody. But we still want to talk about the status of Breakpoint, and I've been playing a ton of it because I'm kind of obsessed with it. That game has a lot of issues, but I'm also obsessed with it. Both of those things are true. But specifically Days Gone, I definitely didn't finish all of that. But I think there would be value to someone if I read a review for Days Gone that said, I did the first of all these optional objectives and they were so dumb I didn't feel like doing more of them. That might be frustrating as a viewer to think, on one hand, man, that's upsetting because maybe they got better. Maybe they, had more elaborate things that happened down the road. This is not something I would see Bloodworth doing or me doing or anybody at Easy Allies. But if they were honest about their approach, to that review score, then you can take that opinion in context for how much they played, because that also speaks very poorly on how interesting those things are, how attractive all of those other elements are. And for something like Outer Worlds, I just think, Blood's the kind of guy, like, especially in seeing Blood play Borderlands 3 and just seeing how much he digs in, in almost every clip of Borderlands 3 when Blood would finally take everybody out and nobody would be at the base anymore. Like, he does what I do in Breakpoint, where he just goes into absolutely every single room and it's just like, what should I go into this chest or what's going on over here? And so Blood is very thorough. He's a good man, thorough. And so I think that's why you got his take on Outer Worlds. But if somebody put 30 hours into Outer Worlds, if you really wanted to know a diverse, an editorial opinion, a batch of editorial opinions that had a lot of breadth to it, listen to that review. That's certainly another take. That person got to 30 hours of that game and they're like, I'm done. I don't necessarily need any more. Blood really liked Outer Worlds and wanted to spend a lot more time with it. And so I love it. I love, especially now that we're getting into GOTYs, I love variety with GOTYs. I love variety with reviews. I love, I know a lot of people are obsessed about, review scores and Metacritic's kind of like elevation of their importance, maybe past what is deserved of review scores. But I love Metacritic. I love, looking at scales. I love reading a review of someone who gave something a 10 when I disagree. I think it's fascinating. I think the spread on Death Stranding is fascinating because none of it's wrong. No one's wrong. So if you gave Death Stranding a 6, you're not wrong. If you gave Death Stranding a 10, you're not wrong either. These are just all of everybody's experiences, and especially before a game came out. It's fascinating to examine them. MGS Junkie, in the last Cup of Jones, you mentioned that Jessica Linverdi will be a permanent part of Fiasconauts. I mean, if she gets like sick or something, she's not going to be in an episode. But we're moving past the point with Jess where we like ask her if she wants to be in the next episode. It's just going to be assumed that she will be a part of it. Does this mean she's the official 10th EZA member? Nope, we're not paying her. She's just doing it. Also, is she being paid? No, she's volunteering her time. Also, you see other people the allies know would want to be in a similar role. I mean, she fills the Fiasconauts role because a lot of us are like, we're good. Look, we love doing Fiasconauts, but if we can take a month off, of course, especially in review season or event season, or I just had a baby season, it's nice to, which is all of 2019 for me. It's nice to be able to step away from podcasts or other shows if we want to work on something else. So, again, for people that don't have context or maybe like aren't, drawing a line between all those things. I saw a lot of people watching Mysterious Monsters when Jess and Amanda were on, and they were like, oh, they're being horrible to each other. And it's like, they're dear friends. So that's why. I mean, you kind of see that with the allies too, when I'm terrible to Kyle, I just cosplayed, mocking him with crooked glasses, it's because I love the guy. And so Jess and Amanda are in a improv troupe called Ripley together. And so they do a lot of work together. So Jess just finished up a campaign at Hyper RPG. So she just does a lot of that, a lot of improv, a lot of working with groups, a lot of for exposure work. Which is interesting because, it's fun to see Jess pop up with groups of people. I'm like, I didn't know she knew those people. And so Jess is, doing stuff at Geek Sundry. She's all over the place. And Ripley people especially too are also very involved in Hyper RPG and Geek and Sundry. So it's neat to see them doing stuff. Ben Metal. Maybe we'll get more Ripleys involved in Fiasconauts. Who knows? One by one. I'll pull all of the Ripleys into Fiasconauts. Ben Metal, segment out select discussions from the podcast as separate videos to increase the amount of views on those discussions. It helps to highlight your coverage of particular games that may not end up getting reviews. Josh Reed continues. In a completely separate post, Ben Metal above brought up cutting podcasts into segments. I think this can be a good idea if only big discussion topics come up. For instance, you would take the excellent segment about the Blizzard kerfuffle and make that its own video. I believe a contained discussion video about one topic could do really well, since the EZA podcast is relatively topical and not late to discuss things, unless it happened 6 days earlier. Getting certain topics out while the discussions are still ongoing could be really beneficial to the YouTube page. A lot of casual viewers may not want to watch an hour-plus long podcast, but they would like to watch a couple of people discussing what happened with Blizzard or certain big announcements or leaks. Counterpoint. All this is not wrong. Maybe not necessarily 100% correct in terms of like it'll automatically help your YouTube channel. It might. It would in certain respects, because Ben Metal brings up an example. He thankfully chopped down his comment into 2 easily digestible sentences. Thank you, Ben. But he brought up that look what Game Informer did, and he posted, Game Informer had their podcast in one video post and then had a clip from the podcast in another video post, and he said the views are really good on both. And so there are some people that didn't want to watch the podcast, they just want to watch that discussion, and vice versa. For where we are right now, the fact that we have that sponsorship of our podcast is crucial to our... Crucial might be a little strong, but we get $3,000-$4,000 from joint sponsorship across Frame Trap and Easy Allies podcast every month, and so it is a chunk of our Patreon that's not something to sneeze at. And so I wonder. I think one curiosity that I have, I'm a little bit nervous that if we were to take a discussion out of the podcast and be like, all you should do is just watch this. That would potentially stunt the growth of the podcast itself, of those numbers, of literally the download numbers of that video itself. And if they were to, for new people coming in, they're just like, oh, neat. Okay, I like that video, but I don't know if I want to watch an hour-long podcast. Or for people watching the podcast being like, oh, I've been waiting for you to do something like this, because actually, I'm not a big fan of the podcast, but you do have interesting discussions every now and then. On top of what I talked about earlier, 2 other points. One, if we take Josh's recommendation and don't clip out every episode, then the playlist is really confusing. Then we're doing these weird audio updates, like do we post those on Patreon or just on the YouTube page? And then when you're going through, like I remember Radiolab is a show that I dearly love, and every now and then they would do Radiolab shorts, but it was tricky, like looking through the list, you're like, wait, is this no, I want a full episode. There's nothing but shorts here, and like it does get a little confusing and a little muddy. And that's my other point, the point number 2, which is that's why Kyle is not a big fan. Kyle's like, that would just seem really messy. It would be more work. That's fine. I'm not, as the person who cuts the podcast, I'm not opposed to clipping that stuff out. And I've definitely thought that. We've definitely had episodes where I'm like, ooh, that's a juicy video all on its own. I just wonder at this point, because this might sound unusual because, I've said in the past, our YouTube views aren't that important. We put up shows that we know are not going to earn that much because they are in response, they are previously a goal or a reward on our Patreon or something that we know our fans are expecting and our fans will enjoy. And if we produce content for our patrons and they continue to financially support us because we're producing that content, the views don't matter that much. With the exception of some other things, like Blood just mentioned, our Death Stranding review hit 150K. That's very important to us. If we're putting that much work into the Death Stranding review, if Ben is taking, almost a month, obviously he's doing Frame Trap and his Patreon responsibilities and everything else that he's working on. But that was a big, long game, and it took him a long time to get capture and to, of course, like gather all of his thoughts for that review and then to produce the review. And so if we're putting that much time into it, we want to get as much exposure on that as possible. It doesn't mean if we don't get a lot of stuff, I'm going to do my Catcast Quest 2 review this week, which is not going to earn big numbers for us, but I'm so happy that I did it. It was fun to put that together. I certainly took my time. And the podcast is also a little bit different because, we might want to explore other sponsorship possibilities for the podcast because all of that is based purely on views. When we start bringing in big names like ViewSonic, and Uniqlo, they definitely are curious. Like, hey, how much does this earn? How much does this, how many views does this get? Just audio wise, how many views does this get on our YouTube channel? How much reach do you have on your podcast? And so if we put up that video, while that is increasing our viewership on YouTube just in general, and might possibly, introduce people to us and kind of what we're about in a way that we're not currently doing. It could hurt views on the podcast, potentially. I think that's one of the reasons Kyle is a little trepidatious around it. But to cap this on what I think would be a fun idea, potentially, that I've been thinking about for a lot of different shows, is clipping out a short segment of I know Game Informer does this as well, and I enjoy this because I enjoy the Game Informer podcast. And shout out to MinMax, MINNMAX, new Patreon from Ben Hansen. That potentially clipping those things out, very, very short versions of them, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, for social media posts. So when you put up something on Twitter, that is accompanied by 30 seconds of the podcast. So you'd get like, oh, look at that fun little moment. Okay, I'll watch the podcast. So social media, that's maybe something, I want to bring that up with the allies. Is that something that we can incorporate? Maybe just kind of show one way we could potentially do that by sending Bossman clips of the EZA podcast, which would be more work. And I generally cut the EZA podcast at 4 a.m. now while I'm like listening for Milo. Is he awake? At this desk. Straw Hat Ninja. I was curious how often you update your work PCs. No idea. And what you all do to keep them running efficiently. Not a clue. What kind of virus protection you use? Do you run everything on SSD? I don't think so. And do you keep a backup of your system? I don't think so. All of those are Damiani Ian questions. I'm not a PC guy. Sorry, Straw Hat Ninja, I didn't... You were a very loyal Cup of Jones question asker. I'm sorry I didn't get the answer ahead of time. But I put it in takeaways, and I'll reach out and if I can get either an update on that or an answer on that. I know we do have virus protection. I'm just not sure. Again, I didn't build those PCs. I didn't set them up, so I'm not sure we set up on there. But the last two, backups and SSDs, I don't know. Pretty sure we don't back up our systems. I know we back up a lot of our media. I know we back up a lot of stuff that we do. We have a drive where we back up stuff on, but specifically that stuff on the PC. Not sure. Asbo Zapruder. Okay, but like if Phase 4, I love the but like if is like the template every time for these, Asbo. Okay, but like if Phase 4 of Easy Allies was a striptease artist during the dying days of vaudeville, what would its gimmick be? So if we were imagine Easy Allies were strip teasing, which is not that's strange to Patreon. Patreon definitely has, you got your striptease Patreons if you're interested. Try to keep this as a PG show. Our gimmick is that there's 9 of us. Is that they're like, oh, the Easy Ally, and then like Ben comes out and Ben like takes shows a shoulder, and then like Kyle comes out with the shoulder exposed and then shows the other shoulder. Blood comes out, shows a leg, like woo, it just keeps building. Obviously, I am the finale. Jesse Nye, I brought up a couple of games about a month ago asking about EZA's plan to cover them. I have a couple more. Jesse, I love this. Keep these coming. These are great. I think that have slipped under the radar. Oh, I didn't get... Hopefully Blood can weigh on these too. I know some of these. Asking about EZA's plan to cover them. I have a couple more that I think slipped under the radar. After Party, currently in review right now. Trine 4. We talked about that. I don't think we're going to be doing any coverage of Trine 4. I don't think we did any coverage of Trine 3. Wait, no After Party review. Okay. There's an update. Sorry. I know there's no Plants vs. Zombies Battle for Neighborville. And I know Ian is currently playing through and loving Disco Elysium, but I don't think we have plans to review Disco Elysium for Jesse and I, bringing up the 4 games always that we have no plans. Oh, we did the easy update Saturday. There we go. Okay, I knew a code was distributed, and no one was into Trine 4, right? Yeah, so we didn't easy. Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. We did that's why people were playing After Party. And this is definitely something that I should have talked about. Sorry at the top, but we sat down with Sarah and with Ash from After Party, who were in After Party, and sat down with Ian and Huber. If you haven't checked that out, so that was a very special, borderline solid games coverage episode of Easy Update. Like definitely just Ian providing that could have easily just been its own separate video, but Easy Update, baby. So yeah, sorry that. Hopefully that's some fun after party coverage, and we did check out PvZ Battle for Neighborville on our group stream. So we did do some coverage of this, and like I said, Disco Elysium is. I would not be surprised if that comes up potentially in our GOTY discussion, because that's one of those things. You got your Ian Hank lovelies, man. You got your games near the end of the year every year where Ian's like, hey, this game, your Return of the Obra Dins. Yeah, good stuff. And Disco Elysium is, I don't know if we'll have time for it over the holidays, but that's curiouser and curiouser, that Disco Elysium, from what I hear about it. Daniel Ribeiro, the lovely Sophia Harris needs people to go to the beach with her. Since you and Amanda can't go because of Milo, we can go to the beach. Amanda's at the beach right now, actually, believe it or not. Amanda's exercising on the beach right now. Can't go because of Milo. Babies shouldn't go to the beach. He's on the beach, baby. Can you please suggest to Ian an easy update episode for a series with him and Sophia on the beach? Don and other people could join as well. Nature is something that I've long wanted to introduce to Easy Allies. I want to take the guys hiking. I want to take the guys camping. I want to take the guys to Joshua Tree. I want to take the guys to the beach. I want to do all of that. That could be fun. Little beach barbecue stream. Get one of those like Twitch backpacks. Ian and Sophia hit the beach. But Daniel specifically is referencing a tweet that Sophia made that I did see when Sophia made it, where she's like, what's with all my friends hating on the beach here in LA? Sophia never talked to me about it. I am a junior lifeguard, which is very important. I was in a group called the Junior Lifeguards when I was a kid, and we learned how to paddle out, how to rescue people in the water, get them in a headlock, give them a noogie. But yeah, I'd love to go to the beach. Let's do it. Actually, it's something that Amanda and I are slowly, working towards right now, which is we used to go to the beach and run a lot on the beach, and we haven't done that in a very long time. And so we got a stroller from our friends that's specifically like a long handle, big wheeled, high performance speed stroller. And Milo takes those bumps pretty well. We went out to dinner the other night. We walked to dinner, and we went over some pretty bumpy sidewalks. And when it's just jiggling, Milo's like, it's fine. Stephen Beaumont, since we don't need Kyle anymore, can you bring back the final bossman? Cheers, thanks. Took me a second. When I first read that, I was like, what happened? And then I'm like, oh, I was Kyle. I made my costume Kyle for the podcast last week and for our group stream. So you don't want my version of the final bossman. That's the thing, man. When everyone says like, oh, Kyle should just do final bossman, I wouldn't want to do final bossman. That show's terrifying. That idea is terrifying to me. It's like, I'm going to do an editorial today on marriage, but I'm going to wing it. I'm not going to write something down and be like, that clever thing I said last week, get ready for another clever thing. That stress is insane. So I 100% sympathize with Kyle that he doesn't want to do Final Bossman anymore. I was blown away that he did Final Bossman. I knew Kyle did Final Bossman before I knew Kyle. He was doing that show before I really got to know him, before we were really friends. I was just his boss. He was just a guy, obviously we streamed together. We had a lot of fun together. We one of the first things we did at Easy Allies was Brandon Plays Pokemon, because we'd always talked about that. So we did talk about doing shows together. We inspired each other creatively, but we didn't hang out. We didn't go get a drink or food or something. We saw each other at work and then went home. You weren't even his boss. Yeah, technically. When he was doing fun, yeah, I was just a creative director back at Game Trailers. Yeah, I wasn't his boss until Jeremy was his boss. Yeah. So it wasn't really until right before Easy Allies that I really got to know Kyle a lot better. It was like, he kind of, confided in me. Like, this is a stressful show to do. This is tough. It's kind of like where Huber got to the point with Syndrome, where he's just like, you see Huber doing Syndrome, and I know Stephen Beaumont was not expecting this to launch into a discussion, but you see Syndromes and you see, Huber being really passionate about something, and it's kind of like Huber's passion and Kyle's cleverness, that is a well that they are drawing from, and sometimes that well is empty, and that doesn't mean that like, I have to be great all the time, but like, we do run a Patreon. We do create content for people that pay us for the content that we create based on how good it is. I think how consistently good it is, how consistent we are at creating it. And so that can be scary, to be like, man, I feel like I'm about to drop a very dumb episode of my show, and I don't want to do that. There's definitely moments where Huber backed out of doing something or shot something and was like, I don't like it. And I was like, what? Really? It's fine. Huber, just do your show. But it's like easy for me to say. It's not my show. I put up episodes of Trailer Jones, and I'm like, oh God, everyone's going to hate. I gave that trailer a bad score, and I seem so conceited and pompous. Oh God, those nerves. And again, that's just me off the cuff. And so the idea of like you writing a script or kind of organizing or doing research on those opinions before you put up the video, people are like, you don't know what you're talking about. And you're like, I know. Like, I get it. So a hoodie and glasses, even though they might make you look like Kyle Bossman, can't make you Kyle Bossman. Jason Wallstrom, I enjoyed the latest episode of Trailer Jones, and I have read the first 4 books in the Witcher book series. If you are at all interested, this is not a question, but I just wanted to leave this because I think it's interesting information. I'm curious if Blood wants to weigh in on this. If you're interested at all in catching up to what I think the Netflix series will be covering, I'm pretty sure it will cover the first 2 books of short stories. I didn't know they're short stories. That's cool. The first one, The Last Wish, and the second, Sword of Destiny, are available on Audible, narrated by Peter Kenny. They are fantastic if you want to give them a try. I have no question. I'm just excited for The Witcher, and when you're excited about something, you want to spread the love and enthusiasm. They're great books. It's funny. What I'm doing right now is I'm reading Fellowship of the Ring to Milo. We're not very far. We basically get through the prologue. It starts with the short stories, then becomes full novels. Cool. It's just basically when Milo's like bored and like he's in that mood where he's just kind of staring at you. He's just like, huh? And I'll just like, you want to talk about hobbits? Let's talk about hobbits. And we're just getting through the prologue. Even the prologue, man, that book is so good. Even the prologue, just about hobbits. That's like, oh, you didn't read The Hobbit? Okay, well, let me explain this to you. Super good. Maybe I should just switch to Last Wish and get through that. That would be interesting. Although I like reading something where it's like the plot. I know how this book ends. So I'm not going to miss anything just like staring at Milo or just kind of like reading it in a cadence that he can understand. And there we go. Business questions. 10:41. How's that for a short episode? Let's take a super long time going through this editorial, shall we? Got the troop mug. Got the troop cup. The troop chalice, if you will. I gotta be honest. Full disclosure. I don't know where my cup is right now. I thought it was at work, and then I realized, oh wait, I was at work, and I'm like, oh, I forgot my cup. I don't know where my cup is. And I was like, oh, but I'm about to go on the podcast. I hate that when I don't have it. And then I'm like, oh, wait, but I'm Kyle Bossman on this week's podcast. So he wouldn't have the cup either. So I got a Red Bull. I never, ever drink Red Bull during the podcast, but I only drank Red Bull during last week's podcast because it was a Kyle Bossman bit. But I don't know. Sometimes I leave it in the booth. And I was like, oh, I left it in the booth. And then I opened the booth and was like, where's that mug? It didn't get very far. It's either in the studio or at home. Cheers, everybody. But I got troops. Thanks, Troop. Speaking of Amanda Troop and I have been together for 17 years. In the car. It might be in the car. I did leave it in the car, and then I got it out of the car, though. But thank you, Blood. Please, Blood is so helpful. I love Amanda Troop, but I also love Daniel Bloodworth. I'm in love with Daniel Bloodworth. Bloodworth's a good guy. So let's talk about love. We've been together for 17 years, and part of me looks back at that 17 years and is like, it's not bad. It's fine. I'll do it again. It's no big deal. Like, people talk about, marriage is really hard. It's like, it's not that hard. And then I also think about like, oh, wait, no. Yeah, we have done a lot of work. There were parts of that were very tricky. There were things. It was a bummer because we started off our relationship. We met in 2002, and then I sold, along with my partners, we sold game trailers to Viacom in 2005. So, yeah, getting a large influx of money very early on in a relationship can be troublesome. you want to, sign on the dotted line there, just in terms of like how much you're getting. I have this much money, but you bringing into this relationship, and so, and then I, almost immediately put those resources into getting the house that I'm sitting in right now. So, it was an interesting start to our relationship. But we met in 2002, married in 2007, 12 years married as of yesterday, November 3rd. We had a lovely anniversary. Again, put Milo in the stroller and then wheeled him over to a nearby restaurant and just kicked back. We're discovering if you get places at 5 p.m., it's a good time for it's like, oh, you have brought a stroller too. You had the same idea. So that's our 5 p.m. dinners is our new, is our lives now. But I love that lady. I think she's fantastic. She's one of my favorite people in the entire world. And I just want to talk about the hard part. The easy part is that she's hilarious and she's creative and she's very funny and she's very driven, and she really balances me in terms of, things that scare me, really dumb things like making phone calls to like dentists and stuff. They don't like scare me. I just really hate doing it. I'll put that off forever. Amanda's always really proud of me when I'm like, hey, I made an appointment to go see a doctor. She's like, good job. Because I'm like, oh God, I just want to do that. I just want to be on hold. I just want to deal with that stuff. And I just hate, my dad's an accountant and I just hate contracts. I hate paperwork. I hate taxes. I hate it. I hate it. I know it's part of life and I know you have to do it, but like, for instance, she hates putting the dishes away in the dishwasher. And that's like crazy to me. It's like, what? Just put the dishes away. She hates folding laundry. And it's like, just fold the laundry. It's no big deal. So it's fun to find those things where like, oh, I'll do that. If that's not even something that I don't necessarily like love to do, but it's just like, oh, it doesn't really get, that hung up. She doesn't mind doing the laundry. She's like, I literally just hate folding laundry and putting it away. She's like, it's such a mundane, stupid activity. And I'm like, oh, I'll just plop Milo down on the bed next to me and talk to him while I'm folding laundry. Like, no big deal. So it was important in literally just, if you think of a marriage as like a business, like we live together, our finances are intertwined. We have to deal with a lot of this stuff. So it's important to find those things where like, okay, you do those jobs, I'll do these jobs. But, specifically what I want to talk about, because even though I am going to get a little personal, this will be the, more of a Jones, editorial than an Easy Allies editorial, but it does factor into Easy Allies because it does, make me think about communication. That's like the main thing I want to talk about. And man, you can go into any Hallmark store and you'll see the word communication all over the place. You can open up any of the like anniversary gift cards and it's like, I really like how we communicate. And so it almost kind of factors into like, when I used to hear the word anxiety and I would just be like, oh, that's when people are nervous. And it's like nervousness and anxiety are two totally different things. Communication was something that like you hear that at businesses too. Communication is very important. It's important that we improve our communication. You can talk about improving communication, but there are, in my experience, in 17 years of marriage, 12 years of marriage, 17 years of this relationship, communication is hard because communication to me is about sacrifice. You would think communication would be like phone reminders, like, oh, a reminder, call my mom, or oh yeah, I got this reminder that we have a meeting and I can meet with my coworkers, or oh, there was that thing that I set that I wanted to wish that person a happy birthday or thank that person for the gift that they had sent me, and so to improve communication with my friends, I just have to remind myself to communicate, and it's not actually the process of communicating with them that's difficult. Totally changes when you're in a marriage. Totally changes when you are in a committed relationship. And I am not here to tell anybody how to be in a relationship. I don't know, I don't know you probably as well as you know me. I don't know certainly the relationship that you are in. As we are discovering in the 21st century and beyond, we can do all sorts of crazy things with relationships. And so, kudos to you for being in whatever weird relationship that you're in. Good on you. But just from my experience personally, I found that I had to have a tremendous amount of sacrifice when it came to really bringing our marriage to a level that was better, to elevate it. And that meant I have to tell this person things about myself that suck, that I'm not a big fan of. That I would think by the age of 40, I'd be over. I'd be getting to the point where I don't have to worry about that stuff anymore. No. Don't worry, spouse. I have that figured out. That you can only keep that up for so long. And I think that kind of represents, yes, Bradley Spees in chat. So, about Yoshi. Amanda and I have co-opted many Yoshi games together. Yoshi has brought a lot of love and coziness and warm, fuzzy textures into our marriage. But I digress. I think there's like an honesty you have to have about yourself and an honesty you have to have about your partner that can seem destructive, can seem like, well, that relationship was fun, but it's now time for me to be honest about this. And it obviously, as I said, there are parallels with business. There are parallels with your family. There are parallels with brothers, sisters, siblings, parents, aunts, uncles, grandparents, and whatnot. But specifically with somebody that you're living with somebody that you're committing this much time to, with somebody that you're sharing a life with. I encourage all of you to maybe like take a risk or two. Again, not if you had an argument last night, don't do that. But, if you ever find yourself, from this guy who's been married for 12 years happily, if you find yourself at that point where you're like, yeah, I'm just going to keep that thing to myself, because if I admit it to, my, spouse, if it was some sort of failing, even if it was something in the past, maybe not as extreme as like an infidelity, thankfully I don't have any of those, but, if it was just a mistake you made, something that you maybe even got away with, like something you were like, whoops, they told me to do that thing and I didn't do that thing. And then they didn't notice I didn't do that thing. And then I did that thing later and like, whoops, even just coming clean about that, coming clean about things that you're like, I got off scot-free. I don't have to talk about this with my spouse because they didn't notice. And so like, oh, phew, even just to be like, hey, I did this thing this morning. I'm not proud of it. It earns you points. I'm telling you, it shows your spouse that, it's surprising. That kind of honesty, and especially it's a really good time around the holidays to reflect on that. Our anniversary's on the 3rd, so it's always a good time to kind of look at each other and be like, where are we at? Where have we been? What do we want to do for each other on our anniversary? What do we expect from each other? Troop and I have actually been very passive when it comes to presents. We don't really do a lot of like crazy jewelry, fancy cars, or anything like that. Like imagine like buying a car for somebody. Here's a car, but we really just try to make time for each other, especially with, our crazy busy schedules and how much of our lives are online. We really try to like shut everything off and just kind of reconnect. And I think about that every time I think about how much I love Amanda, how happy I am in our marriage, just that level of honesty and communication. They can be difficult. And again, if somebody's like, okay, cool, honey, I did this horrible thing in college. I'm like, ew, that's gross. I'm breaking up with you. Like, sorry, I don't, I'm not out here to destroy relationships or inject, honesty where honesty, does not have its place. But Blood says, it blows my mind how many car commercials are presented as someone giving someone a gift. Who can afford that? Yeah, like parents for a kid. Like once I can maybe think of. I think my parents leased a car for my brother when he was in college for like 2 or 3 months. But I didn't want to drive in Boston. I was like, oh, I'm taking public transit in Boston. Thank you very much. Yeah, I just, I think that also to tie it around to Easy Allies, I think that also, I've definitely had profound moments in 3.5 years of, being involved in this business that when someone will be like, hey, here's a refreshing dose of honesty. Here's just something that I think about what we do. Or Phase 4 was a lot about that. Phase 4 was a lot about wiping that slate clean and having people come forward with uncomfortable truths about how they felt about certain shows and how much time they really wanted to commit to something, or potentially an idea that they had. This is another thing that can work out really well in a relationship. Here's something that I've always wanted, but I don't feel comfortable asking because it can be, tempting not to do in our relationship because things are working out really great. So why rock the boat, right? If things are working out really well between Amanda and myself, and I just suddenly think like, well, yeah, but there's this one other thing that I want to ask for, or this one other thing that I think could potentially be better about my life or better about relationship if we do. But I don't want to make it seem like I'm not happy with this relationship. Honesty will get you farther maybe than I think you think it will. Is I guess the point of this, and that worked out well for us at Easy Allies. Anytime somebody's reached out to me, anytime an ally has opened up and just said, hey, can I take 5 minutes of your time? I had this issue that I was wondering if it was a big thing, but maybe feels uncomfortable bringing it up. But I just wanted to be 100% clear. I wanted to make sure our communication is on point. Somebody asked last week or the week before, they thought it was fascinating that we've gone 3.5 years and none of the allies have moved on or left, or we haven't had any shakeups within our company. Knock on wood. No, Sophie, that's me knocking on the desk. But I think a lot of that is due to the fact that we are equal partners in this company, and so we do allow for not only people to bring up those suggestions, but we meet together for the group stream. That's a great opportunity to do that while we're all in person. We have a meeting at the end of every month. That's the perfect place to bring up suggestions like that. And so it's not only about having communication, but creating those opportunities for communication. Amanda will do that sometimes with me. Amanda has just these gigantic, big, beautiful eyes, and so every now and then I'll just be with Amanda and I'll look at her and she's like, I'm like, are we connecting right now? Okay, wait, we're connecting. Hold on. Because I don't have that. I can very easily be like, oh, you're going out of town for 2 days? Cool. I'll play Ghost Recon Breakpoint for 2 straight days and not eat. I'm fine with that. Those are my vices. Whereas Amanda definitely, requires a deeper emotional connection, I was gonna say because she's a woman and I'm a man, but let's redact that from the record because she's Amanda and I'm Brandon. That's as simple as that is. And that's just something that she longs for. It's something that she likes to have in a relationship. And so I definitely get caught in those moments where I'm like, oh, okay, sorry, let me stop performing for you and let me just kind of take a deep breath and meditate for a second and get down to your move to your emotional level, and so we can hang out there at the same time. And so you get there when you communicate. You get there when you are honest. You get there when you're open with your partner. And apologies to anybody that's like, great, I'm single, Jones. Click. Sorry. I was in a lot of bad relationships that were good for me, but I was sure was bad for the person that I was with because I wasn't honest, because I didn't really value a relationship as much as I should have. I broke up with someone to get together with Amanda. I dumped someone to be like, sorry, I just met this gal and she's incredible. And I think I might, I didn't know at the time I was going to marry her, but I was like, I think this is a relationship I want to commit to. Certainly the Amanda right off cam eye line. I'm in this house by myself. Ha ha. It's just me and Sophie and Norbert. I definitely just peaked the mic. But there we go. Love is grand. I hope, if you have good love in your life, I hope you're able to hold on to it. And I encourage you to be honest. Again, if you're like, great, I'm single, Jones, thanks for the depressing editorial. Use this in your work life. Use this with your friendships. Use this with friends that you've known for 12, 17, or possibly longer, many more years than that. And if you're having difficulty, again, with I find a lot of horror stories. My mom knows a lot of people, a lot of different families, a lot of people that she's grown up with. And she tells me, stories that are frustrating to hear because a lady, her son will marry someone and that wife just doesn't like her. And then will not talk to, his mom. And it's like, what? Like, why wouldn't you just try to be, open or communicative? So see if you can pull that off. If you can't, to each their own. That's just the way we roll here on Cup of Jones. And I promise next week's episode will not be about how much I love my wife, but I do love my wife. And as a public person who records what they say a lot, I like to say I love my wife as many times as I possibly can. There you go. Takeaways, PC specs, virus protection, run on SSDs, backup of the system. Straw Hat Ninja wants the details. I don't have. I'm not a big PC guy. And the 1-year studio anniversary celebration is not something that we have really talked about, but the end of November or end of December or beginning of January meeting before we meet for the end of January 2020 meeting, which will be very exciting. Maybe think about doing a fun thing. Maybe have a group stream dedicated to just talking about the studio and showing off the studio. But think about it. And think about loving each other. Thinking about being honest. I love all of you, and I try to be as honest with you as I can. I'm 99% honest with you most of the time. Just like in my marriage. I'm just kidding. Had such a nice sentiment, and I went and ruined it at the end. Cheers, everybody. Thanks for listening. Boop. See you soon. Cheers.